Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did, so let's get started. Number 5 was Top Gun Maverick, once again making $8.4 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $650 million and a worldwide total of $1.3 billion. So, to no one's surprise, Top Gun not only stayed in the top 5, but also still crushing it, as it only fell like around 18% from last weekend. Incredible hold in its 10th weekend alone. And in terms of all-time grosses for the highest grossing movies of all time domestically, it is just around $3 million behind the first Jurassic World's domestic total and around $9 million away from Titanic's entire domestic total, which is absolutely incredible. And given how well it's been doing for the entire summer, I see no reason why it doesn't surpass both of those by the end of next week. This film has just completely dominated the summer and the year in general. There's just no sugarcoating about it. There's just no other way to put it. This movie has been so successful. However, there are a couple of addendums to this. One is that I don't think it's going to get to the $700 million milestone, just seeing how much it's making right now. And even though it could happen, you never know. Stranger things have happened before on the show, especially with this movie, but given where it's at, I just don't see this movie surpassing $700 million domestically. Just seems so close yet so far. And another thing is that even though I typically save this type of stuff for later on in these videos, it is notable to note that there are 2 new movies hitting theaters this weekend, and I think that'll be just enough to knock Top Gun out of the top 5. It just seems very likely that at this point in the game, it'll probably be out at the top 5. Or this is just another case where I look stupid and make bold predictions that inevitably fall flat on my face. So who knows? But if this truly is the last weekend we see Top Gun Maverick in the top 5, bravo. Just the legs, the sheer amount of success, the fact that this movie was able to bring back movie going for so many people, on top of it just being an incredible movie alone, is just outstanding. The legs this movie had, the amount of money it has made, just unbelievable. Even the people who had the biggest expectations for how well this movie was going to do definitely did not see it doing as nearly as well as it did. And given how the summer is almost over and we're heading into the fall, it'll be interesting to see if any movie can even come close to making this film's amount of success, whether it be Black Adam, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Avatar, The Way of Water, or even Shazam. Will any movie surpass it, let alone come close? I don't know. It kind of seems like a high bar at this point, but we'll just have to wait and see. And for now, at least, Top Gun doesn't really have anything to worry about as far as that goes, as this is the highest grossing movie of the year, both domestically and worldwide. And having seen this movie, I cannot argue with that otherwise. Truly deserving of that. So, good job, Top Gun Maverick. You had truly a hell of a run at the box office. Number 4 was Minions: The Rise of Gru, making $10 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $320 million and a worldwide total of $710 million. So even despite its second form of competition hitting theaters in the past month, which we'll get to later, Minions: The Rise of Gru was still able to put up a good fight. It only dipped 39% from last weekend, which is really saying something. Again, with a new animated film hitting theaters this weekend, you'd think a lot of this film's audience would deviate to that film, but no, many people are still rushing out to see the Minions. This film has had really strong staying power, and this puts its domestic total just 16 15 million away from the first Minions' entire domestic total, and given how close they've been to each other, I think it's safe to say that Minions: The Rise of Gru will surpass the first Minions' entire domestic total. It might not be by that much, but hey, surpassing it domestically is still surpassing it domestically. I don't think it's going to get to the $1 billion total just because it just seems a bit out of reach for this film, sadly. But even with that, making over $700 million on an $80 to $85 million budget is quite the total worldwide. That is a really solid total, saying so, and just adds to the fact of how successful this was, not just as another entry into the Despicable Me franchise, but just as an animated film. No other animated film thus far has been as successful as this film has. That is insane. And the fact that this film was able to bring a wide variety of audiences, not just families, but even teenagers who may or may not have just been doing it to get popular on a social media platform, but I digress, was still able to bring those audience members into seeing this movie is quite the feat. I am very happy that this movie has done as well. As someone who really liked the film, it's really impressive to see this franchise still going strong thus far. And if this is one of, if not the last time we see this movie in the top 5, because again, those two new wide releases might bump this out of the top 5, this was still a really great performance for not just an animated film, but for a movie in general, given that, again, this is a 5th film in a huge franchise that's been going on for roughly 10 years, over 10 years now, and the fact that it's still drawing audiences to see it is quite the feat. So yeah, all in all, another solid weekend for Minions: The Rise of Gru, and another week of me congratulating on its success. Job well done. Number 3 was Thor: Love and Thunder, making $13 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $301 million and a worldwide total of $662 million. So the film is starting to hold better within its coming weeks. It dipped just 41% from last weekend, which is a very good hold, and it has finally surpassed the $300 million mark domestically, which is quite impressive. It should surpass Thor Ragnarok's domestic total very soon, and it's, in terms of its worldwide totals, it is just less than $40 million away from $700 million worldwide, which it might get to. That one we might put a pin on. It is starting to slow down a bit, but again, stranger things have happened before. But yeah, overall, still doing very well for a Marvel movie and just a movie in general. It's just that with its opening weekend and expectations prior to the film's release, it does feel like it is falling behind and a bit under those expectations, because it could have been so much bigger than it was, especially with its huge opening weekend. But yeah, we are at the point in the summer where things are starting to slow down, and especially movies that came out earlier in the summer are going to start slowing down. So this is just what everyone expected this movie to be at this point. It's just chugging along a bit and still making money for itself, even with its huge $250 million budget, which it probably already has broken even at this point. But yeah, just another weekend for Thor: Love and Thunder. While not doing horrendously, it could have been a little bit better, but even with that, it's still doing pretty solid. Not much more else to add here. Number 2 was Nope, making $18 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $80 million, and that total stays the same worldwide as it still has yet to be released in any international markets. So yes, it did take quite a hit this weekend. It dipped 58% in its second weekend, which is not the best hold you would want to see for a film in your second weekend, but for a horror film, this is what you typically expect, because it is a rarity for horror films to have some of the better, stronger hold. It is typically around 60 and maybe even 70% at times. you would see for a horror film to drop in their second weekend. And honestly, this was probably to be expected, as reactions were a bit mixed. While it was good for a horror film to get like a B plus on Cinema Score, a B plus on Cinema Score is still a B plus on Cinema Score. While this might be good for horror films, it's not really good for your movie. Audiences are a little bit all over the place on it. It certainly didn't impress Logan Paul, who is, a cinema connoisseur. But anyways, yeah, this film might come a bit under expectations as well. It's probably not going to match the level of success as Us did, but it might fall short behind Get Out even, as it's not really bringing the heat in terms of that. But this film is still doing very well. I do not want to give off the impression that this movie is a flop. It's just not meeting expectations. That's the thing. Basically what I said with Thor: Love and Thunder, it could have been doing a lot better, but it's still doing very well for itself. It has surpassed its $68 million budget domestically, which is very good. It's $20 million away from $100 million domestically, which is also very good, especially for a horror film. And speaking of horror films, it is just $1 million away from surpassing Scream 5's entire domestic total, and just $3 million away from surpassing The Black Phone's entire domestic total, which is very good, and all around just a very solid total for this movie in terms of it being an original film and just being an original film for an older audiences. Again, this is an R-rated horror film, so a bit of a niche market there. So yeah, while not blowing the doors off in the way that many people thought it would, still doing very well for the type of film it is, and I can't see anyone being really upset about its performance. Maybe bummed, but not like upset or flabbergasted by its performance, as it's still doing very well thus far. And finally, let's end the video off with the number one movie of the weekend, and that was DC League of Super Pets, opening with $23 million this weekend domestically and $41 million worldwide. So this opening weekend was kind of disappointing to many people. It kind of underperformed in many people's eyes, certainly mine. I thought it would at least get to $40 million domestically. It was quite the surprising turnout for this film, as this is the fifth biggest opening weekend for an animated film post-theater closure era, as it was able to top Sing 2, but it sits behind The Bad Guys, Encanto, Lightyear, and Minions: The Rise of Gru. And for family films, it's the overall seventh biggest opening weekend. Once again, topping Sing 2, but sits behind The Bad Guys, Encanto, Space Jam: A New Legacy, Lightyear, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and of course Minions: The Rise of Gru. So while I don't think it was the fact that it wasn't that well marketed, or the fact that the film got like the worst reviews, I just feel that there wasn't that much interest in the film per se, as I didn't really see a whole lot of buzz the same way I saw buzz for stuff like Minions and Lightyear prior to their opening weekends. There wasn't that much attention, or I feel that people, at least in my eyes, were talking about it in a way to where I could see it having a solid opening weekend. And I said it was going to open over 40 million, which is a bit surprising to say, as while this isn't a bad opening per se, as the film costed around $89-90 million, and it's on the right track worldwide at the very least. You'd think with the brand recognition of DC and even the Super Pets brand awareness, along with the star power this movie had, Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart headlining, this would have opened a bit better and taken advantage of that late summer crowd where there's really nothing coming out. It would have probably opened better, but I guess not too many families were all that interested. Again, Minions was not really all that affected by this film's performance, and that film opened like about 3 weeks prior to this movie, which is saying something, as this was originally supposed to come out before Minions. It was originally supposed to come out in May, but got pushed back. However, there is a silver lining to this film's opening, and that is the fact that this is just its opening weekend, and the film has not only the rest of the summer, but a solid about 2 to 3 months for itself, as this is going to be not just the only animated, but just family film in general, playing in movie theaters until October, when, of all things, Lyle Lyle Crocodile hits movie theaters. So, if anything, this movie could have the chance to play out similarly to what The Bad Guys did back earlier this year, where their opening weekends are very similar in a sense, but thanks to the word of mouth and the fact that it was really the only thing for families to go check out in theaters, it had the whole rest of the month, or rather I should say months, for itself, so it had strong legs and strong staying power and puts up a good fight to become some of the bigger movies and even bigger surprises of the year. So while this opening might be a bit disappointing, this is not the end for the Super Pets, I would say. It still got the rest of the summer and still got the rest of these couple months all to itself, so hopefully it can have strong staying power. Maybe the families who saw it encourage others to go check it out, as it did receive an A- on CinemaScore, so that's good. But yeah, it's really going to need that help and those strong legs, because this opening weekend was kind of a disappointing opening weekend, at least in my eyes, considering a lot of the benefits that many people, including I, saw in it. But we'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully it does hold well for these coming months, as this opening was a bit disappointing. And those are the top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, but we're not quite done yet, as we've got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters. And like I said earlier in this video, we got 2 new major wide releases hitting theaters this weekend, the first being Easter Sunday. If you are wondering why an Easter movie is coming out in early August, well, this film was actually originally supposed to come out around Easter, in fact on April Fool's Day earlier this year. But then Morbius took that slot, and apparently they were scared of that movie putting up a good fight, so they pushed it back to early August. I guess that was the smart move, but in all honesty, I do think this is one of those wild cards where I'm not really sure how well it's going to do, because there are cases where this movie could surprise and be one of the bigger breakout hits of the summer or even the movie season in general, as August typically has 1 or 2 huge surprise hits that blows people out the doors. I remember Good Boys and Crazy Rich Asians, when they originally came out, completely exceeded expectations. No one saw it coming how well those movies would do. So there's a chance this movie could become one of those, but I just don't see it. Despite the marketing being everywhere, I have seen so many promotions for this movie, you have no idea. But the buzz is where this film is lacking. I'm not seeing a whole lot of people talking about this movie or getting really all that excited to see this movie. That's the real drawback, not really seeing a huge amount of buzz for this film. But you never know. We'll just have to wait and see how well this movie does when it hits theaters this weekend. And the other new movie hitting theaters this weekend is Bullet Train. Now, I actually have high hopes for this film, as this is the last film I predicted would be in the top 10 highest grossing movies of the summer, and for good reason. The marketing has been great, the buzz has been strong, the trailers have all been great, and it looks like it's going to be the last big action blockbuster. What the heck am I saying right now? The last action blockbuster of the summer movie season for sure. And with it being August, this movie has plenty of room to leg out and hold out very well, have strong holds, especially with how Thor Love and Thunder is slowing down a bit for sure. So that provides plenty of ample room for Bullet Train to overperform maybe. However, there are a couple things I do feel are holding it back. One is that it was a very delayed film. This was actually supposed to come out in mid-July, but they kept rescheduling and reshuffling the schedule, so it got pushed back to August, I guess, to once again have the benefit of it being later in the summer. And the other is that it is rated R. We'll see how that affects the film, as you're aiming for a much more older audience and you're restricting the rest of the audience that might be interested in seeing this, like teenagers maybe. So that could hurt it a bit, as well as reviews. Reviews aren't out yet at the time of this recording, so we'll just have to wait and see how reviews are and how they affect it. But we'll see how well this movie does, as well as the rest of the movies that land in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied? Unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.